Am I in trouble?
Oh no, totally not. Totally
damn.
not. But I've seen a lot of your stuff is based on self-defense, right? And of course, I don't call myself like a self-defense expert. So I
Right.
want to kind of get your opinion on gun versus knife.
So I am in trouble.
I mean, I personally, I practice a lot of firearm shooting too.
Right.
But I also been practicing Filipino martial arts for the last 2 decades. So, and I know you heard about the 21-foot rule.
Yeah. Yep.
So-
we did a video on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get your opinion on the scenario where you have your firearm. You have your firearm basically concealed. What do you think that against a knife attacker? What do you think is like the bare minimum safe distance?
If we're just talking 3, 2, 1, go, like a straight line, like there's no environmental issues or there's no terrain issues, and you don't have any pre-attack indicators, like that he hasn't told you I'm gonna come over there and kill you. Like, I think they're finding now it's more like 30 feet or 33 feet or something like that. I think that's like what the studies have shown, that it's something like that. When I did the video on 21-foot rule, the point I was trying to make is that was never a rule. That was the findings of a drill, is that distance was sort of like the distance, you know.
Yeah.
But they're now saying 30 feet, I think.
Wow,
And
30
I don't know.
feet.
I think it's the chicken nuggets. I think people are faster and stronger because of the hormones in the chicken nuggets has made us all
Yeah.
faster and stronger.
But do you think that people practice sight, dry fire, drawing? Do you think that those helps?
Yes. I mean, every reps are reps. I think largely there's a huge disconnect, and this conversation could go pretty much for anything in the self-defense industry. I think a lot of people, when they think self-defense, they don't think of reps. And if you are a combat athlete, you think of reps. Like, I need rounds of sparring, I need work on the bag. And I think in self-defense, they kind of cop out a lot and say, well, I can't do reps. Because you can't do like live force-on-force training. It's much
Correct.
harder to do some force-on-force than it is to do for us to put on gloves and go do a couple rounds of sparring.
Exactly.
You know, logistically, it's just not as easy, and there's not as many people into doing it, and doing it is more expensive. So there's this huge barrier for entry. So I think, I'll put it to you like this. When I was in the academy, we had a week, and I was a pretty avid shooter, but we had a week on the range, and it was like 8-hour days on the range. Just
Wow.
like, you know, just that we had
Shooting?
Yeah, we had a couple of 4-hour days, and we had some 8-hour days. And by the end of that thing, and we had like level 3 retention holsters, and by the end of that thing, my pistol was coming out so fast, like faster than I'd ever, because I'd never done those reps of just drawing. Yeah, like I made sure I knew how it worked, but, you know, and at the beginning of the week, I'm sure I'm slower, but by the end of the week, scenarios would pop up, and then that thing would like magically appear in my hand because of all those reps. And
Yeah.
I think that the average and this is true probably for the average participant of any martial art, which I view like pistol combat as a form of martial arts.
Correct.
Oh, thank you.
I agree.
Kevin Lee says it is. It is.
I
so
agree.
it is.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I think we could always just use more reps.
Okay. So do you think martial art helps in terms of buying you time with defense against a knife attacker?
Yes, because, and this is what the I just shoot 'em crowd doesn't get. Like, if you don't have empty hand, when you say, I assume you mean like empty hand skills, like
Correct.
actual ability to fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you are not getting to that gun.
I 100% agree.
And everyone thinks they would. Everyone thinks they'll just rise to the occasion. But you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. And when we do the courses, I've done a few courses, and one in particular, and I've seen this happen a few times. I was doing a course with Craig Douglas from ShivWorks, and it was his extreme close quarters concepts. And there's a mix of guys in there. There's some guys with some martial arts backgrounds, and there's some guys that are just gun guys. And when he says go, and the guy with, a basic modicum of grappling ability gets on top of a guy who's never wrestled or done jiu-jitsu a day in his life, and that guy's not fighting the position, not looking to tie him up or break his posture or shrimp or do anything. He's just trying to get his gun. Meanwhile, the guy is like based out and just smothering him and just pressing him into the dirt. And you hear this 6'3", 250-pound guy who imagines himself as a tough guy, carrying a gun, wearing, all the regalia, Punisher skull shirts, Oakleys. And he gets pinned to the ground by a guy who doesn't weigh as much as him, who doesn't look as mean as him. And you hear this whimper. You hear this like, and they feel like they can't breathe. And you see it on the mats. In the mats, you see white belts spazzing out and freaking out and having that moment where they're like, oh my God, I am powerless. People that, you'll see them tapped in pressure, you know? And you're seeing that go through the mind of a guy who really imagined himself as able to get to that gun. And it's, the first couple times I saw it, I kind of laughed, when I was a little younger and a little less mature. Now I'm very mature. But I would like laugh, be like, ha ha, this guy didn't know what he was in for, ha ha ha. And like, because I'm so much better because I've done the reps or whatever. And now I look at it and I'm like, that is sad. And I shoot people ugly looks. When other people laugh, I shoot them an ugly look like, bro, that guy's going through some things right now that are pretty serious.
Yeah.
More so than, it's not like he missed a free throw. He's like realizing how powerless he is in a real fight.
Exactly. I agree with that. Because I see a lot of video where people like trying to defend themselves using firearms. But they're just only reliant on drawing the gun out. They see the threat, they don't try to take care of it, they just try immediately go for the gun, reaching for it.
Yeah, that is almost always the other problem with that is when you do the reps, sometimes you can win a scenario like that. Yeah. Like I'm guilty of it too. Like if my partner is not really like that big a guy and I know they don't know how to wrestle, I won't necessarily establish the position and I'll just
Yeah. But Ray Nelson's actually doing that too, wrestling with a gun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We do a lot of rounds of that at the studio, and that's become in the industry. That's sort of become the industry standard for the courses that I've been doing with guns and knives. It's largely a wrestling workshop. Yeah. But you have a weapon in your hand. I relate it to MMA. Like when you do your grappling class, right? Yeah. And there's a dude in your grappling class that is just ragdolling you, throwing you everywhere, right? And then you finish that class, and you put on little gloves, and you do an MMA class. And now he can't take you down as much. You can maybe even take him down. When you introduce the gun, it's like that. It smooths everything out. And like, not everyone, like you might be light years ahead of me in grappling. Yeah. But if I have a knife in my hand, like you're a couple belts lower, and this is giving me a belt, so we might be closer.
So in my jiu-jitsu class, I do this like every once in a while, and people love it, right? I put everybody like back to back. Okay, so you and your partner back to back. You close your eyes, and I just go around hand people weapons. They might have a blue gun, a knife, and I say, hey, tuck it in, tuck it in.
Yeah.
And I'll say, all right, guys, let's go grapple. They'll turn around, grapple. Some people will wait until they get to a dominant position before they show their weapon. Yeah. Some people pose it right away. And the moment they pull, they lose it. Because they go, crap. They grab it, yeah.
And it becomes a forehand, like everyone's hand on the weapon, and then they just roll around, and then they burn up their forearms, and then that's it.
Yeah. And it's a fun experiment to watch. Even though there's a lot of high level, they change the way they roll.
Dude, that is awesome. I have done hidden training weapons in a roll before, but never like structured like that. That's really cool. I'm stealing that one.
You should do it. It's fun. It's super fun.
I'm stealing that one.
You'll see like blue belt change your mind, brown belt change your mind, because you can get a different weapon. Training gun, training knife, whatever you want.
You walk over and there's a white belt back to back with a purple belt, and you give that white belt a knife. That purple belt's gonna be like,
holy crap!
I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Having some kind of empty hand training is definitely a plus.
Yes.
So that's basically what I want to try it out and having an experiment is we're gonna run different scenarios. Having a guy attack with a knife, the guy number one is gonna only rely on the gun. Every time he sees an attacker, he's going for the gun. Guy number two is using some sort of martial arts skills to defend. Yeah, and that'll be part of the experiment too.
Yeah, I think so. In your experiment, are you going to have people that are untrained doing it, or is it pretty much only people with training?
Only people trained. But I'm gonna tell the guy, hey, you can't use martial arts. You have to
just get. Well, here's what's funny. When we've done similar things, even guys that really know what they're doing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, MMA guys, empty hand, Muay Thai guys, like just guys with those types of skills. If you tell them it's like a gun problem, they think it's a gun solution. You might not even have to tell them. Like, it's been my experience that if I give a training gun to a martial artist, and I say this guy's gonna, and he puts it in his shorts, and like he's gonna think that's what the solution is gonna be, and a guy attacks him. Even guys that know what they're doing, that have not trained in mixing the two, will sacrifice position and go for the gun.
Oh, I'm gonna keep that one right there.
Try it a little bit. It might not be everyone, but it's been my experience because I've done it, I'm guilty of it. People that I've put through scenarios are always guilty of it. Where if the proctor of the drill tells you, all right, there's a gun involved, you're like, so a gun is definitely the solution. I always shit the bed when I do scenario training because I think too much.
Pressure.
I got caught the most recent scenario training I did. I got caught. The guy just needed a punch in the face. He wasn't doing anything to where I needed to shoot him, but he was definitely earning a punch in the face. So I just got sort of stuck, like waiting on, I got to find a time to shoot him, but he hasn't done anything yet. And I just should have hit him. And I just forgot. And that's like my primary skill set is striking. And I just totally blanked that is our thing. And we were allowed to do it. We were wearing helmets and, you know what I mean? I just didn't think of it.
That's crazy. So I'm asking for a prediction, okay? Let's say the guy who knows martial arts, doesn't matter if you know Kali, any empty hand like skill sets, okay? I don't know how you feel about Kali, but we gotta get on to the Kali training for at least once in person. So I want you kind of like make a prediction, okay? If you know some kind of martial arts, what do you think there's a minimum minimum distance that you can protect yourself?
To reliably. So it's so
get to the
complex,
point you can
Kevin.
Escape and draw your gun out.
So without any contact between you, getting a gun out and on target and shooting the person, it takes reliably. It takes and that's assuming you don't really mess up.
Yeah.
Like you don't really flub the draw, you don't drop your gun, you don't accidentally eject your magazine, and like you need over 30 feet.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's crazy is if you do have some good empty hand skills, particularly as it relates to limb control, so wrestling, jiu-jitsu, anything where you understand like the different ties and tie-ups and stuff like that, you'd almost be better off at 0 meters. You'd almost be better off in contact with the person, getting control, and then drawing from a dominant position of control. That's the guys that do that will succeed. If they establish position, don't immediately go for their gun, from 0 meters, like the guy's already on you.
Yeah.
The where it becomes, I think, unpredictable is between 0 and 30.
Okay.
You know, the guy coming at you with a knife, and then you make a decision: is he too close? I think you'll see that if they're inside, especially down under 21 feet, the 21-foot rule.
Yeah.
Which is not a rule. I think inside of 21 feet without any martial arts skills, I think a bad guy's going to win like 7 out of 10 times. There'll be a little hang up in your experimentation because you are talking about martial artists,
Yeah.
And everyone's going to start gaming it. The longer one of these experiments goes on, everyone gets like better at it as it goes.
Yeah.
And they sort of, if they watch other people go and they kind of say, oh, and then there's artificiality in the fact that you're like waiting and you know that someone's about to attack you and the goal is to get your gun out. But just from a mechanical standpoint, the distance, 21 feet is a great starting point, but 30 feet is really what you need, I think.
So let's say that I have martial art training and you are the knife attacker. Okay, we're 6 feet apart. Do you think that I will be able to defend myself and escape and maybe draw my gun out?
If you go immediately for the gun, you are going to get cut to ribbons.
Not go for the gun right away. Using martial art first.
Yeah, using martial arts first, there'll be 2 stages to it. You addressing that knife first.
Yes.
Addressing that knife and getting that position first, and then achieving that draw either from a dominant position or as you're choosing to disengage. If you get to their back and bump them off, and then I've made draws. I've made a draw in real life. I was on a guy's back. I was patting him down, and I hit the gun he had a gun in his waistband. I ended up with like a rear body lock, and we were fighting over the gun in his waistband, and I was like kind of losing the grip battle. It's harder than you think, and so I just bumped him off and drew. And he did like this, and he never turned back around because he knew what I was doing. But with martial arts training, you'll need a few feet, and you'll need to establish position first. That's going to be the key. If they don't establish position first, they're just introducing another liability.
Yeah.
If you're tying up one of your hands and pulling out another weapon for the bad guy to focus on or access, like he can. And guns are easier to take away from a person than knives. So he'll have an easier time taking your gun away than you'll have taking his knife away.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. Because even when we study like Filipino martial arts, knife disarm is very difficult to do unless you have 100% domination. But it's people pull, people draw, people punch.
Right. If you're already winning, largely a lot of the stuff that people fixate on with weapons, it's like if you're already winning, like if you were winning anyway, like you're totally got the person pinned down and spread out and their arm hyperextended, then you can like take the knife away from them. But at that point, you could have done anything that you wanted to them. But like disarms in real fights and all the experiments and all the drills and all the sparring we've done, disarms and knives are just sort of like, sometimes it happens accidentally. It's like kind of cool. Sometimes people kind of see it.
You said it right. The first thing we were taught in Filipino martial arts, it's disarm happens by accident or incidental. Yeah, it's not a thing that I think that people misunderstand. Like, oh, you do college, you can disarm a knife anytime, which is technically not true. Not true at all. So, last question. Rate the best martial arts for knife defense.
Wrestling. It's wrestling. It's wrestling.
We're gonna experiment on that too.
It's wrestling. I think above, like light years above everything else. They tell me in the comments all the time, yeah, right, you should get a Filipino martial arts expert. They tell me that. But I think wrestling, the reason I think wrestling is the most effective martial art for really, it's kind of proven to be just effective period in all forms of combat, but particularly with weapons is because of the reliance on using the head. Because if we're fighting over a gun, you have a gun, I grab the gun, you grab my wrist, I grab your other wrist, and now we have, all our hands tied up. The head position battle is where the fight will next be won. And to my knowledge, wrestling is probably the best at teaching using your head as that extra limb.
Actually, yes. Are you familiar with catch wrestling?
A little bit, yeah.
Because that's mostly my background, which is catch wrestling or shoot wrestling. So the difference is, I think that the using of control, the neck, the arm control, they all share the similarity. But catch wrestling does a lot of more like, I guess, like judo throws.
Right.
there's a lot of judo throw, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu technique, Japanese jiu-jitsu, there's all like combining there. Because there's wrestling has like, I guess, sets a rule that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this.
Yeah, that would be my criticism of wrestling, is that some of the things, like if you train extensively in only wrestling, you'll kind of like almost, I'd say, forget about certain things. It's like, you know, people criticize like, oh, you don't train for the streets, you won't do headbutts and groin strikes and eye gouges and all that stuff. And that's true. If you only train in a sportive context, it's not that you can't do it. It's you won't remember to do that. But if you take a guy that can wrestle and also be like, yeah, you can also like snap the arm here, or you can like neck crank him here, or you can headbutt him here. Now you're dealing with a bad dude, because he can also do all that from a dominant position.
That's true. Very true. Cool. Okay. We're gonna see how this experiment goes.
Good luck, man.